experience Hunter Biden and the Biden family syndicate. As Congressman James Comer says, House Republicans will, in fact, probe Hunter as a, quote, national security threat if the GOP takes back power in November. And tonight we are learning even more about Joe and Hunter's interactions, including this voicemail obtained by the Daily Mail from October of 2018, where Joe Biden is allegedly begging Hunter to get help for his substance abuse. Take a listen.
Dad, I called to tell you I love you. I love you more than the whole world, pal. Can I get some help? I don't know what to do. I know you don't either.
It's actually sad. Now, that voicemail reportedly came at the exact same time Hunter lied on a gun application to buy a handgun. That's the same handgun that was later found stashed behind a Delaware grocery store in a dumpster. And by the way, it happened to be near a school that we later learned was stashed by his sister-in-law, Haley. And by the way, it was the same month that Hunter apparently begged her for cash to go to rehab. In other words, he lied on his gun application about his drug use. And by the way, replace the name Biden with Trump and imagine how the mob and the media would be covering all of this. Instead, they'd rather, perpetuate one hoax after another, just like they did with the Dirty Steele dossier. And speaking of the dossier, the subsource for Christopher Steele, Igor Danchenko, is going on trial, accused of lying to the FBI about his sources for the Clinton bought and paid for opposition research. Now, the FBI knew from him, he debunked it to them in January of 2017, yet they kept using the dirty dossier, knowing none of it was true, to acquire multiple FISA warrants to continue illegally spying on Carter Page and then President Trump. And the FBI even started putting him on the payroll. They were paying him money. Here with reaction, former Florida Attorney General Pam Bondi, along with Fox News contributor Laura Trump. Pam, let's start on the legal side with you tonight. The thing I don't have a problem with them going after the gun application, because if the last name was Trump, they'd go after Hunter Biden, if it was Hunter Trump. The issue of him not paying the taxes, that raises a lot of questions also. I want to know if national security was compromised because he was taking in all this money without any experience from Russia, Kazakhstan, Ukraine, China, a lot of money and a lot of deals at a time the guy is a drug addict and using a lot of hookers. I'd like to know that aspect, and I'd like to know the connection to Joe, because Joe denied any knowledge of any of his foreign business dealings when, in fact, we know and have evidence that he had numerous meetings with many of Hunter's foreign business partners.
And that's all been acknowledged now, Sean. And yes, it is a matter of national security. It's so important. Yet they choose not to get a special prosecutor in this case. And now this new evidence that we know, very sad, by the way. And to digress for a minute, parents, you do have a remedy. Relatives, you do have a remedy. As a career prosecutor, you can civilly commit your relative or your child if you know they're doing drugs or alcohol to that extent. But what we do know now is that Joe Biden knew about the drug use at the time. Hallie, his girlfriend and sister-in-law, knew about the drug use at the time. There's now evidence, text messages, that his sister, Ashley Biden, knew. So, Sean, therefore, they have to have a special prosecutor, and they're not getting a special prosecutor. Legally, that is an actual conflict, because as we know, the U.S. attorney reports to Merrick Garland. Merrick Garland reports to Joe Biden. Joe Biden and his kids are now witnesses in any case against Hunter Biden. And it's really unbelievable legally to me that that has not been dealt with and there's not a special prosecutor on this case.
Laura, what's so frustrating, if your husband, Eric, if he had done any of the things that Hunter has done, that we know that he's done, if he was taking money from Ukraine and Kazakhstan and a Russian oligarch and the communist Chinese, a $1.5 billion deal, no experience in any of these businesses that they're doing these deals with, you know that by now he would be in jail. If it was Don Jr., he'd be in jail. If it was Ivanka Trump, she'd be in jail. That's the double standard. And by the way, to what extent is Joe Biden compromised because he knew all about these deals? And why is the FBI not going after the bigger picture here? Because that's far more important, whether or not he sold out his country, than the issue of his gun application that he lied on.
Well, that's exactly right, Sean. And by the way, if it was my dog Charlie, he'd probably be in jail, too, if he did half of the things that we know that Hunter Biden has actually done. And you know what? It is so sad to hear that voicemail from Joe Biden. It's tragic. No one ever wants to see a family have to deal with an addict, someone who obviously, can't take care of himself. And if there's anything we learn from Hunter's laptop, it is that, man, this guy is in serious need of help. But that aside, Sean, you also can't take for granted, I don't think, the timing of all of this, the possible charges against Hunter Biden and the likely outcome of those charges. Biden's Department of Justice right now is doing everything possible to restore their reputation with the American people, to somehow justify the raid of a former president and possible political opponent's home that was unprecedented, that was unnecessary. And so I imagine that the FBI comms team cooked up this idea. They said, wait a minute, now's the time. We're going to go forward and possibly charge Hunter Biden with something, a slap on the wrist. And look, if anybody did anything wrong, of course they should be held to account. But Hunter's reckless personal behavior aside, Sean, you're exactly right. We want to get to the bottom of what happened with 10% for the big guy. Hunter Biden, his Uncle Jim, Joe, profiting to the tune of millions of dollars for their family on foreign business deals that utilized Joe Biden's position pretty clearly in all of these deals. And I think the American people know the only way we are going to get to the bottom of this is to put Republicans back in charge of the House, Republicans back in charge of the Senate. We need some oversight on this. We need to know, because it is a national security issue. That is the bigger picture here.
And we know damn well that the Communist Chinese and the Russians and every other foreign entity had full knowledge of Hunter Biden's drug use, using prostitutes, and every other awful thing that he was doing in his life. So clearly they have compromising materials, to quote Adam